All right. Saw friends. Welcome back to Hobby Vomit. I'm Matt. We've got Ian and we've got Jonesy here. And tonight we are discussing our movie for this not week, but whatever, this cycle, we'll call it. And it is called The Lighthouse. So yeah, if you boys want to say hey.
How's it going? Good to see everybody again. I'm excited for this one, although we'll see how quickly I get out of my depth. This is different. This is a different kind of movie for me. So,
Hey everyone, Jonesy here. Thanks for stopping by. Good to be with you all again.
Yeah. So, like normal, what we're gonna do is we'll have Jonesy read the synopsis of the movie, and then we'll talk. We'll kind of do just a round robin of general thoughts and a score, spoiler free, and then if we have any spoiler free discussion, we'll go ahead and do that, and then after that, we'll jump into spoiler talk and just let the discussion take us where it takes us, and then yeah. So let's pass it over to Jonesy for the synopsis of The Lighthouse.
All right, it's a quick one. Two lighthouse keepers try to maintain their sanity while living on a remote and mysterious New England island in the 1890s.
That's it.
there we go.
Checks out. That's the movie I saw.
Okay, so we all saw the right one.
The same movie, right? Does anyone want to start with their score? You want me to start?
I can go and give it a go.
Yeah, give it a go.
So kind of pivoting off of that, I didn't realize it was an A24. And so when A24 popped up, I was like, dang, oh crap, I'm watching the wrong one. And then I had to double check. I was like, okay, no, this is the Robert Eggers The Lighthouse.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the synopsis is right. This is got to be the right film. Like, what are the chances that they made two The Lighthouse?
Yeah.
So I think I watched the right one. Anyway. So non-spoiler review. This is definitely kind of a different kind of movie for me. I was excited to watch more Robert Eggers. I've only seen The Northman, so I've not really seen much of his works. But I have some friends. I think Matt, you're included in that group of Robert Eggers fans. But I have another friend who's also really, really big on these films as well. So it's like two people that are really recommending that, and so I was really excited to get to see another one. So in terms of a kind of non-spoiler review, I thought I was actually far more intrigued by the character development throughout the film and the way that they're playing around with the sort of mythical archetypes that are present in the film that they keep referring back to. I was always a huge fan of Greek archetypes and always a big fan of the Odyssey, the Iliad and the Odyssey specifically. So it was really cool to kind of see that coming to life here. And what I can only imagine is Robert Eggers' very vivid and wild imagination. I'm going to put a heavy emphasis on wild, but I'm not a big fan. I've never been much into horror. And while I would say that the thing that kind of pushed me off of horror was my dad having me watch, I had to bring this up, having me watch, I think it was called The Tooth Fairy, which is about this demon that haunts. And I'm pretty sure there was a lighthouse involved in vanquishing the Tooth Fairy.
I think there was
at the end of that film. So I was especially excited. If you haven't seen it, okay, it haunted me as a child. It deserves to be spoiled. You should never watch that film.
I've never even heard of it.
I watched it. I shouldn't have.
Was it called Darkness Falls?
I think it was. It's something like that. Yeah, because what happened was my dad was watching it because he always watches TV, fell asleep. So I ended up doing the thing where I just sit on the couch and watch the rest of it because why wouldn't you as a child? So that haunted me. Needless to say, I was not a big fan of the Tooth Fairy after that. I just whenever I lost a tooth, I never told anybody.
Keep your quarter. Keep your quarter.
Keep it. I don't need it. But so it was really interesting to kind of go into this film where this film, I thought for those that are like me, they're not that interested in horror. This is a very, very different kind of film. It's a lot more like The Thing, for example, where it's very much challenging your belief in what's going on, and you're very much like watching the characters for what's happening with the characters and what moments that they're gonna break or not break, rather than like, okay, where's the next jump scare, where's the next demonic haunting, where's the next thing that's gonna eat my friend, right? Where's the virgin that's gonna die, right? So that is kind of like absent this film. And so I just get to enjoy this like sort of thriller, psycho thriller experience, and I really appreciated that fact of it. Even so, I think there were elements of the film where it's maybe too artsy. Maybe it's not the right word to use for it, but at least for me, where there were certainly pieces where I had to kind of sit there and be like, I'm not really sure what I just saw on the film, and I had to like go back a couple of times. I'm like, I'm still not really sure what I just witnessed on the film,
It's
or what
pronounced
I'm
Mermussy.
Mermosi.
Mermussy.
And I just like I didn't so I didn't know, and so I kind of there's still now, even after kind of reading up on it, I still kind of feel like I maybe should have gotten something out of it that I didn't. And so there might be an element of film language, if you will, that I'm just not grasping with these. But overall, I very much enjoyed it. And for any film that focuses so much on the development of two characters going through the story, much like The Shining, for me, for example, because I love The Shining, I could really get behind that movie. That gives me a way to really hook in. And so if you're someone who enjoys character development, if you've seen The Thing or The Shining and you enjoyed those, I think you're really going to enjoy this one. And I think for me, it comes out to be about, I want to say like a 3.25, 3.5 ish, but I was going to give about 3.25 because at least for me, some of the visual language was a bit harder to follow, and it sort of left me feeling like there's something I was supposed to get out of it. I just didn't.
Awesome.
I'll go next.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Ian and I probably have similar thoughts and feelings there. So this is my second I've seen from Robert. I saw Nosferatu around Christmas time. So while there's parts where I feel like I'm completely sucked in by cool like shots and cinematography and dialogue and moments, it's probably not a fair thing, but just out of my pure enjoyment, I feel like both movies are just a little longer than I would care for diving into that type of crazy experience that it took me on. So I probably would rate it like a 2.5, just based on enjoyment, not based on any like accredited film experience or anything like that. Yeah, it really sucked me in at certain parts. Some of it, I just wasn't quite sure. I guess it was just pure psychosis. I didn't know if there was anything else that I'm supposed to be gaining from it. And then William Dafoe, like, I feel like his character and his dialogue at certain moments just really, like, I just really enjoyed those. But I don't know if I have too much else to say. I'm really excited to, like, hear more of Matt's thoughts because I really appreciate your insight and perspective on these types of movies. So I'm excited to talk more about it.
Awesome. All right, so I landed at the highest of the three of us. This is my second time seeing The Lighthouse. The first time I rated it a 4 out of 5, and this time I also rated it a 4 out of 5. It didn't grow or lessen, in my opinion. To me, like, I kind of agree with some of both of what you say. I think maybe it does overstay its welcome just a little bit. It drags a little bit. And then I also agree with you, Ian, where it's like, I think there comes a point where I think I wrote in my review on Letterboxd that like I bet 9 out of 10 people finish the movie and then immediately Google The Lighthouse Explained. And to me, there's just a point that is maybe a little bit too far. And like I've read, including myself, I did that too. I mean, like, and I've read interviews with Robert Eggers where he says, yeah, it's open to interpretation and there is no right or wrong answer. And to me, like, you're right, I'm okay with that sometimes. I guess I won't spoil the other movie I'm thinking of, but there's like movies that end on a like, did that happen or did that not happen? I don't know. And that's okay. And that kind of heightens it. But the entire movie is that. And it's just a little bit too loose for me and that's why it loses a star for me. But I think as far as like filmmaking, to me, every single shot had purpose and was beautiful. The lighting was beautiful. And those are two of the best performances that I think a lot of people will see ever. I mean, those are two incredible performances. And so, and yeah, I would agree. I think you see a lot of Robert Eggers' love for mythology and history and come out in that. But yeah, I think it doesn't have enough to push it over the edge. I wish it was a little bit more grounded, which, I think there's an argument to be made that it's like, well, that's the point. But
Yeah.
Even regardless of whether that is the point or not. It just I wish it for me, yeah, I wish it had just a little bit more grounding. But still 4 out of 5. I mean, I think it's a great film. It's not going to be one that I'm like can't wait for my 10th viewing of The Lighthouse or anything, or like an annual rewatch, but I do love horror, and I think a lot of people walk away from this thinking, well, I've never seen a movie like that. And I think that it at least achieves that a lot. It's very memorable, right? I think this movie sticks with a lot of people for good or bad. I think it achieved that. So yeah, 4 out of 5 for me. So I'm curious, Jonesy, because what did you give Nosferatu? I thought that maybe you'd like this more than Nosferatu.
Yeah. I think I probably rated it higher when I did it, but I think just thinking on it more, yeah, I don't know. I don't ever have any logic to my rating. Enjoyment wise, I enjoyed this more than Nosferatu. Yeah,
Okay.
I think when I initially rated Nosferatu, I gave it like a 3. I think when I saw it.
Okay. What's
yeah, it's actually a
measly
good question.
0.5?
You're making me think because I hadn't really thought about it. I think I probably did enjoy some of the more like cinematography and like shots. I probably enjoyed that more in Nosferatu, and I think this movie I enjoyed the overall experience probably more. So that's probably
Okay.
like why I'm jumbled in my thoughts. There's things I really liked about both, but I probably just enjoyed Lighthouse a little bit more.
Sure. And that could change on if you ever do rewatch. I think
Yeah.
Robert Eggers films do
Yeah. I think
change.
I think the ending in particular compared to Nosferatu and Lighthouse, making sure I don't spoil, but the ending for Nosferatu really left me like, huh? And I don't think it was a because like, oh, I can't like allow myself to enjoy an interpretation. I don't know. I was just like, what? Like, okay.
Yeah, I felt
And
the
this one,
same.
I'm like, I can respect, like, yeah, it's just like anyone could think anything of the ending of this one.
Yeah. Okay, do we is there anything else we really want to talk? I mean, we could talk about like, right, this is a movie that it's an extremely isolated movie. And so this movie really hinges on the two actors' performances. There are two characters in this movie, and only two characters really. You really are only seeing two people throughout this entire film. And so to me, like, we can kind of talk about what did you guys think of their performances. I know, Jonesy, you said you were really impressed by Willem Dafoe. I think to me, like, Willem Dafoe is always great. He just doesn't miss. Like, he's an incredible actor, and his range is great. And I think he was extremely consistent throughout this entire movie. But to me, Robert Pattinson almost outshines him because so the first time I saw it, I remember leaving thinking, wow, those were incredible performances. And then when I watched it this time, I was like, I can't wait to see Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe again. And it starts out, and Robert Pattinson, I found me being a little underwhelmed by his performance. And then by the end, I thought he was outshining Willem Dafoe. So I think that it was an intentional arc for his character, and he even provides that with the range of his acting. And I think they're both 5-star performances, but the range of Robert Pattinson in this is just super impressive to me.
Yeah, I don't know if we're at the point of just jumping into it and talking with spoilers, but I'd really be interested in hearing like maybe one or two of those scenes that really stood out for Robert Pattinson, because I feel like maybe on this first viewing, just William Dafoe stood out more to me. Maybe I just paid attention more to his language and dialogue is like more poetic and colorful, and maybe that just kind of stood out to me. And I didn't not enjoy Robert Pattinson's, but for some reason there wasn't really anything in this that made me like really like super impressed, like you're saying. So I'm really interested in hearing like a couple of things that stood out to you.
Sure.
Yeah, so we want to do spoiler free, or sorry, not spoiler free, but we want to go into spoilers yet, or do we want to kind of just give the last selling points for like why?
Yeah, is there anything anyone else wants to say? It is hard to talk about without spoiling, because it's almost like it's so black and white. Like the plot, it's hard to talk about. It's literally black and white. I mean, we can talk about film, yeah.
Spoiler, it's black and white.
Black and white.
But I think like I mentioned The Shining earlier, but I think The Shining has the same characteristic. It's going to be built on the performances of those characters, right? Like if Jack Nicholson is a terrible actor in The Shining just doesn't land the way it does. And I think the same thing is true here, except we've got two people that's really important that they both sell their piece. And I think they both did a phenomenal job. And I think that's exactly. You're watching it for that perspective. Now, I mentioned the thing earlier. This is not investigation. So for those that like the element of one of us is the intruder, we need to figure out who that is. That's not this, right? We are here basically watching like two people deal with the struggle of this experience. And I think that for many people, this can also be one of those where it's very fascinating and intriguing, because we don't often think about the fact that these jobs are real. I mean, certainly for the 1890s, but even still today, there are a lot of people who take remote jobs. In fact, I even posted out an article on our Discord just this week where I was like, this is kind of sad, but also it's kind of crazy, because there's a remote research station in Antarctica where people are starting to get violent, and they've been out there, an extended stay. We've had, we had two people right in space that were supposed to be there for 8 days, and they were there for 9 months. We have people who go on barges off of the Pacific over the summertime to like look after salmon populations, and they're just stuck on a barge by themselves. And we've got people who go into national forests.
So like watch people, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like that's a real thing. So like this element of people going into isolation for extended periods of time is a very, very like real aspect of today's life for many people. But it's just not a very common. It's always been a rare job, right? And there's always been a bit of mystery to like, how do people get that job? What kind of people go into that job? And then when you put a couple of them together, it's like, well, what about their backgrounds? Like, how are they going to mesh, right? What's going to happen? And so there, I think, is a very intriguing element to that. And I think it's a good ground for this kind of film, because it's going to immediately start challenging a lot of your expectations about what these characters are like. And I think that's one of the things that makes the performances so good is kind of what you bring into it, or what perceptions you might have of these kind of people that would do this job, and then the way that they're challenging those perceptions, and then the way it starts to devolve. And so I think that's kind of what it is. It's like, it's going to give you something intriguing. It's going to give you something different. And I think if you're really into psychological thrillers, I think this is kind of a new, at least for me, it was a new addition, although I haven't seen a ton. But I thought it still brought a really fresh element to it. So if you're kind of into that, I think you'll really enjoy it. It certainly will be well worth a watch. I don't think it'll be something you ever regret in terms of watching it. So it's definitely a good one. Just go and sit down. And someone who grew up on like C-rated action films is telling you that's a good, good one to go check out. So I think that's kind of the big selling point is how well the actors sell it.
Yeah, and I think if you're into film in general, this is just something you should watch. I think it's a beautifully made film from a film standpoint. Maybe not the story standpoint, but I think if you're into film, I would be very surprised if you watched this and didn't take something positive out of it. And then, I think it just has that memorable factor. I think you could hate this movie, but you will remember watching this movie. And I think it's going to be remembered as one of the, I wouldn't even say polarizing, because I think it tends to lean positive. I think a lot of people that watch this kind of, especially A24 has made a name for itself at this point. So has Robert Eggers. So I think a lot of people know semi what they're getting into when they watch it. So I think it does lean towards a positive rating. But I think it's just, everyone should try it, I think. And you'll at least remember it. But I think we could probably jump into spoilers, because there's not too much more to say, I think, without being able to spoil. So if you've not seen The Lighthouse, goodbye. Leave.
Go watch it. And you don't even need color. You don't
even need color. Yeah, if you've not seen it, go watch it, and then you can jump back in and listen to our spoiler discussion. So thanks for watching. Goodbye. All right. If you're still here, then we're moving into spoiler territory. So does anyone want to kick off the spoiler talk?
I can kick it off. So I did have one thing I wanted to say, but I was like, I gotta bite my tongue because I don't want to say it during our sell of the film. But in terms of the cinematography, I think the cinematography is absolutely fantastic, especially since a lot of it is focused around Robert Pattinson's character, who we know as Ephraim, but also Thomas, which I think is a really important part of the film in drawing the two themes between those characters, is the reveal and Robert Pattinson's character also being named Thomas, and of course Defoe's character is also named Thomas. So we have two Thomases. And I was so happy that the subtitles correctly listed, Pattinson's character as Ephraim in the beginning, because that would have been such a
Big spoiler.
Yeah, I know, right? But I like that we basically don't ever get to see Defoe except when he's basically in the same scene with Pattinson's character. So I think that's really neat. And so a lot of the cinematography. However, there is some very funny elements with the cinematography, like, for example, doing the wave crashes to provide epic effect, but then also doing the wave crash to show that he just like straight up jizzed like all over the place. I was just like, wow, so we just went there with that. Like
That was interesting.
There's even on the subtitles, it's like grunts burst. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
So somebody was having some fun with the cinematography there.
Yeah. I kind of speaking on, I think the biggest thing for me, because there are no right or wrong answers here, because the director himself has said it's pretty much generally all open up to interpretation, except for, I think, the ending. He has basically said it is the tale of Prometheus, I believe.
Yep.
Where he finally gets the knowledge, but at the cost of his sanity, essentially, in this. But everything up to that point, I think there's a lot of open to interpretation stuff. So you were talking about how Willem Dafoe is only ever in the same, you only ever see him when he's with Robert Pattinson. Do we think Willem Dafoe's character is real? Because a lot of it, I think, is just his own guilt. I think it could be argued that it is his own guilt talking back to him. They're only in the room together at the same time, right? He's also named Thomas. He's got the logbook, but the logbook is talking about his problems back when he was a logger. So to me, it almost feels like it could be his own guilt personifying itself instead of another character. There's no other interaction with humans, and there's like these crazy time cuts of, Ephraim or Thomas or whoever, Robert Pattinson, losing his mind, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's real, or if it's just he took that job to be isolated alone, and that's just his mind creating that.
Yeah. So the way that I interpreted at the end was that Thomas Wake is not real, that he is a figment of like the younger Thomas's psychosis. And one of the articles, I can link it to you guys afterwards, that kind of talks about this as well, is that there's at least somewhat of an interplay between like the young and the old. And the connection of the two Thomas names, right, is kind of meant to basically show that. And I think, though, that one of the things that got me onto thinking, well, it's probably a kind of psychosis, or it's got kind of a figment of his imagination, is the fact that Defoe's character, I'm just going to refer to him by the actor since they're both named Thomas.
Yeah, that's right.
That he operates as an unreliable narrator. However, in many films where there's an unreliable narrator, it's not portrayed this way. Like there are unreliable narrators that gaslight to an extent, but it's very different. Like films that have an unreliable narrator that do it well do tend to make that very much an important part of the film, and they very much try to like let you know that there's an unreliable narrator and that this is part of like the shtick. Or it's a big part of the reveal, right? Like we didn't get the logbook being opened and it was all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, right? No, it was an accusation of his sins is really what it was, right? The things that he's guilty of,
and from his past,
yeah,
at his old job.
And so the fact that he's kind of being actively gaslit, but then also like his reaction to it is kind of interesting too, because especially after the scene with the axe, because he just got chased down with an axe, and that axe gets slammed in the table, and it's like, is that why you chopped up the boat? And like you kind of think like if this person's like gaslighting him, like truly gaslighting him, be like, you just chased me with an axe and you're trying to tell me I did that,
Yeah.
you know? But that's not what happens. And so I thought that just the portrayal of the unreliable narrator in this case, I don't think it didn't really feel to me like it was an unreliable narrator, but actually trying to cue us into that this is like a separate character, but not necessarily a separate person.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I took it.
Yeah. How about you, Jonesy?
What's the question again?
Did you think did you think Willem Dafoe, his character, was a real? Do you think two people went and stayed at that lighthouse, or do you think it was just Robert Pattinson's character and like the personification of his guilty conscience, essentially?
Yeah. Man, I don't think I was locked in and even thinking about that when I watched the movie. So you guys are making me think about it for the first time. Yeah, that'll make a rewatch very interesting because
Yeah.
I did feel like there was two people there, but now you guys are making me question it.
I think you're certainly led to believe that up to a certain point. Like, I think you are supposed to believe, and they certainly could be, but yeah, I think up until shit starts hitting the fan, and time jumps start happening,
yeah,
and
I
the
guess
truth about who Thomas really is starts coming out. Then you're like,
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I'm just so focused on the lighthouse and like the light being lit all the time, but young Thomas was never up there, so I guess that's what I'm kind of stuck on. Like,
yeah,
so
that we know.
if yeah. So
he certainly
I don't
sees
know.
somebody up there. Or he thinks he does.
Yeah, and then
But-
something with someone up there. Yeah, I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't even know if I want to think that because then I feel like it. Yeah, I just really enjoyed thinking that there were two people there and just the craziness that happened, like him burying him, like that was just crazy. But maybe that was him burying his past sins. I don't know. I didn't catch those vibes on my first view, so I don't really
Yeah,
have
and
great
I
thoughts
wouldn't
on that
say
right now.
I like a lot. So a lot of these discussions that we're gonna have probably are
Yeah,
sparked from me looking on the internet
yeah.
because there's a
Same.
lot,
Yep.
because things like that. There's certain things that that came together for me right when he first sees the siren or the mermaid or whatever, and there's a bunch of like logs floating in the ocean. You're like, what are these
Yeah,
logs doing here? And then you kind of start when he tells the story of how he let that guy die and then took his name in as a
yeah,
logger. Then you're like, oh, okay, so this is like, to me, that very much was his guilt, and like I could put that together and stuff.
yeah,
But
yeah,
then I was like, it's also weird that they're both named Thomas. But yeah,
yeah.
I never really thought that it could be the same person. And the other thing that people talk about is like, and I know this is a controversial thing, but like, he's basically just in a purgatory state the entire time. The entire film takes place with him on his back while the seagulls are eating him. Essentially, it's all in his mind, essentially.
Yeah.
Which it certainly could be that as well, right? I don't think there are any right or wrong answers. I like to believe it's not, just because it's more fun, the full descent into madness.
Well, I even took the ending more as like poetic than meant to be like a statement. It's sort of in some sense it's like the trial of Prometheus rather than to say that like he literally is Prometheus.
Yeah.
But rather like that was more a poetic representation of like he follows the same archetype as Prometheus, right? And so like he suffers the same fate.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Robert Eggers just really liked seagulls, and it was a very strong lesson in don't f with the seagulls. If you do, then
dead
he watched
sailors.
a lot of
you'll
bad
end up
lip
like that
reading.
at the end.
Yeah.
Just a lot of bad lip reading. Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like that is a critique I have of the film as well, is like it does require outside knowledge for that ending, because that's the one part I think that he has said, this is it. This this is, we wanted to recreate that myth. Well, if you don't know that myth, then it's just like, I mean, you could still walk away thinking like, okay, he finally got what he wanted, which was getting to the light, and it caused him to lose his mind. he falls down the stairs, and now his punishment is
Mhm.
that. But like, it makes it better when you do know
Yep.
what he was attempting to do, and I think that requirement of outside knowledge was part of the reason why I knocked it down a point, because it's just I a movie that forces everyone to go Google stuff afterwards.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
too much, I think.
yeah, and it's tough. Like I think I lean. I mean, I recognize it as well, but I don't. I think I lean the other way, which is, I mean, this was sort of part of the selling point, or the standard, if you will, not selling point, but sort of the standard of the idea of the liberal education, which is that people should all receive a classical education on the same merits of things, and so everyone, like, if everyone's going to receive a liberal education, then technically everyone should have learned these myths because they're a core part of the liberal education, the classical education of Greek.
Which, to
myths,
be
for the
fair,
most
I
part.
did.
Right.
Like, I've learned the story of Prometheus,
Right.
but like, I didn't watch that because like, oh,
Yeah,
Prometheus.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
But my point there being is that part of the point of that, because like I think there's a element where people, I'm just coming at this from like a professor, like as a professor, where people will look at something and then they'll make a decision on it based off of like intelligence or lack of intelligence, IQ versus done, and it's where it's like, no, we're not trying to say like the liberal education should include these elements because you're dumb if you haven't learned them, or that you aren't smart enough to learn them, or things like that. That's not really what it's about, but it's about shared context. And so by basically saying like these Greek myths contain something important in their stories, what we're really trying to say is that there's something important that we can do if we all learn them, that there is this element of the story that we can use as a part of our language to share more stories and to share more ideas and to share more knowledge. And like, this is like the fundamental essence of oral storytelling for thousands and thousands of years, is that by sharing communal stories, we can continue to build on top of them. And I think that like as an artist, or as a director in this case, but an artist, right? I think artists should or rather should be entitled to speak to that kind of thing. They should be able to take an already existing language, the language of story, and say, I'm going to use this language here to tell my story on top of it, right? To speak to that. And I think that that's actually kind of an essential part of like culture, is to be able to use those stories. And so, yes, it does require that we know those stories, but I think that that's, as a storyteller, and film is a storytelling medium, there's going to be an element to where like you need to do that, or
Sure.
you should be allowed to do that, right?
Yeah, and I agree. I think there's just a threshold, I think, for me, for my enjoyment, that it can fall into, and I think it just passed it a little bit because the whole rest of the movie is fully up into interpretation as well. That just was like, it was a lot. But yeah, I certainly don't think you shouldn't be able to do a retelling of Prometheus. I just don't know if that was clear until the last 15 seconds of the movie. I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he's doing. It's great. I think it heightens it if you know it. I think you certainly can watch the ending and take something out of it regardless. I just wish it was a little bit more grounded throughout to get us there.
Yeah, the elements of it are vague, right? And I think that is part of the difficulty, is like where are the cues? And the cues are, we see a siren, we're on a lighthouse island, we have the sailor that comes in and left behind, right? We have this very Homer-esque but strange dialogue, and that's it until one key phrase from Defoe and the seagulls, right, coming after Pattinson's character. And so it is pretty vague. I mean, those elements could be just, oh well, these are just classic elements of a story about sailors stuck on an island, right? And I was reading this article, and I kind of agree with the sense of this article, is like basically the single thing that kind of lands it for you as a reader or as a viewer is just the fact that there's just a single phrase from Defoe's character where he refers to Poseidon as his father. And like, that is it. That's like the only thing in the film that really cues you into this Greek archetype that's being played out because of that. Because Proteus, his father, is Poseidon, and so there's this interplay between Proteus, the shapeshifter, and Prometheus, and like, that's it. And they're like, other than that, you just have the seagulls. I'm like, okay, well, the seagulls are not enough to go on here for the fact that this is Prometheus. But yeah, but I think that's like very much to the point. There is gonna be a point where it's too vague, and arguably this could be to that. I mean, it could be well past that point where it just is too vague. You know.
Yeah, which I think that was the biggest knock I had, because I do think performances were both as good as it gets. I think film wise it's as good as it gets. But yeah, I just wish it was the way I like wrote in my Letterboxd review was like, this is the only movie I've ever watched where I like truly felt like I was losing my mind along with the characters, because I was just like, I just felt like you feel like you're going mad watching it, just with the time jumps, and you're like, wait, the time, what's happening? And like, wait, you're Thomas too, and you kill someone. Oh, the logs, and like it just, I felt like
Honestly,
I was spiraling.
What would have made me lose it within just a couple of days is that foghorn noise. That foghorn noise was so haunting.
Yeah.
So like, just watching the movie, I was like, good God, like that foghorn is making me want to get up and like literally just be crazy and do crazy things. The whatever choice they made for that was like spot on.
Yeah.
The way I handled that was I just started to pretend that the foghorn was just Defoe's farts in the distance.
Yeah. It's one of those things that like I noticed. I'd be curious to really hyper focus in on that another time I watched it. But like I do remember it, the first third of the movie. It's nonstop. It's nonstop. You can't not notice it. But I will say by the end, it didn't feel as constant to me, but it very well may have been. And I just kind of grew.
I didn't look it up, but I need to. I wanted to know if there's some like, was there some mechanism that controlled how often it happened? Did they control it? Because
it seemed like it was during the storms, right? That's what it sounded like to me.
The foghorn's supposed to go off because if the clouds get too thick, if the fog gets too thick, right, then the lighthouse is going to have a hard time doing its job because the fog will bend the light. And so the foghorn couples with the lighthouse to do its job. And so it goes off. It's supposed to go off constantly. I mean,
it just like it disappears for a good chunk of the movie because it was so noticeable to me. And I remember going for a long period of time without it, and then it came back. So I was just trying to figure out if there was some rhyme or reason.
It's there a lot. It's actually there more often than you might think.
To me, I thought it was just like when the actual, because the light's not on during the day, unless it's storming.
Yeah. I mean, the light is there anytime the island may be not visible, right? Anytime.
Exactly. So like raining or nighttime or whatever. To me, I thought that's when the foghorn. It was just like, is the light on? The foghorn is on as well. It's a light off. The foghorn
I don't think we're supposed to interpret that the foghorn is literally playing all the time, but for the scenes that we're seeing, the foghorn is on a lot.
Yeah,
and more so than you might realize, but it's there a lot. And did you guys ever? I know it's just a slight tangent, but did you guys ever read about The Dark Knight after it started getting all its nominations, like the Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight? Because there was a huge set of articles that came out. They were all drawing attention to this film for its use of sound. Do you guys you guys know what I'm talking about?
No.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that got a lot of attention was the fact that nobody realized that there's a droning that's going on in the background during the Joker interrogation scene. But there's a drone that starts and it just stays constant and gets louder and louder and louder. And if you know it and you look for it, it can actually become deafening, specifically listen to it. But if
I'm
you
pretty
don't
sure I know
know
what you're talking about. I always felt it was like a normal part of the soundtrack to build the tension, where it just starts out very quiet and then it just builds
exactly,
but more noticeable.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. It has a really crazy psychological effect on people.
Yeah,
it will drive you crazy. Like that kind of droning, it makes people upset. And that was the whole point, was to have this interrogation scene, and it was to rile up the audience, so that way when they're watching it, they start getting upset while watching that scene. And to draw their attention in, to draw their anger and their strife, and to make them feel like Batman in that scene, because for him that's a really important moment, because if there's any moment in The Dark Knight where Batman might kill somebody, it's that scene, right?
Yeah.
but the foghorn has this same effect because it's this droning, like it's this noise.
Mhm.
It's what drives you crazy. And so I think that, I mean, like, at least that was my feeling of it, is like Eggers is very intentionally like trying to use, or at least his team like very intentionally trying to use that foghorn to like drive you nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah, I would say so
Yeah.
as well. Yeah. Any favorite scenes or and anything else?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we could talk about this movie.
Yeah.
I feel like you could truly dissect
Yep.
every scene in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, any notable moments anyone wants to speak on?
Yeah,
I
I
was going
think
to defer to you, Jonesy.
okay. Yeah, my favorite moment by a long shot is when he asks what he think, or I don't even think he asks about his cooking. It just comes up that he's sick and tired of his cooking. And he's like, "But what about my lobster?" And then he gives him the sea curse.
Yeah.
And I was just reading on IMDb.
Such a
They have a quick little fact about it. They said the scene where Defoe's character gives the sea curse to Pattinson's character because he doesn't like his cooked lobster was shot in one single take. According to director Eggers, Defoe didn't blink for over 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I just,
Wow.
I think I just love the absurdity and like, I guess you're not really supposed to find humor. Like I wasn't laughing, but I just was like, inside I was just like overjoyed by the
I think
fact
you
that
are. I think it's
by the
it's
fact
oddly
that
a
he was
humorous movie.
yeah, that he was like so offended by his cooking that he made like went from a 0 to a 100
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
moment was probably one of my favorite scenes I've ever seen actually. And
Yeah,
just
it's a
I think
great
that's
scene.
where all of Defoe's like weirdness in his character in the movie and all of his like poetic language, like it just came to a perfect like enjoyable moment for me in that scene.
So
I think the punchline too is great because Robert Pattinson's character, after all of that, he's like, "Oh shit!" He's like,
yeah.
"Well, all right, your cooking's not that bad."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
have it your way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's so good. Yeah, it's a great scene.
That is my favorite scene for sure.
I feel like to be on Ian levels of like joke storytelling, I need to memorize that scene so that if anyone ever makes any comment about something I make for
Yeah.
them, I just break into this
Mark!
incredibly awkward 2-minute sequence of cursing them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great scene. Yeah, I guess touching on kind of what I meant with my enjoyment of Robert Pattinson's character,
Yeah.
maybe more. So like Willem Dafoe, I think it's extremely consistent. The first time you see Willem Dafoe and the last time you see Willem Dafoe, I think his character is pretty consistent throughout. With that, maybe that moment being the other thing. Man, I just keep thinking about it. Like the other thing that's so interesting. It's just like, yeah, his character is kind of like, who is this dude? And like, so he's like, he can barely walk, but then he's like dancing a jig when he's drunk.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute. But yeah, really, alcohol is the only time he shows a little bit more energy, I guess. But I wouldn't even say that much more. He's just that colorful of a character throughout the entire thing. But with Robert Pattinson, like when you think on Robert Pattinson on the first scene with their first dinner, essentially, and then all the scenes when his mind has been unlocked and he's lost it. That final, the climax, essentially, to me, like that range, right? It's not that he I think it's good acting, right? That he brought this character from 0 to 100 and he showed me both ends of it. To me, that's like a little bit more impressive. I mean, I wouldn't even say more impressive. They're both incredible performances. But like I remember when I sat down to watch it this time, I was like, I remember Willem Dafoe's always great, right? Robert Pattinson has, I wouldn't say anything to prove because I've seen enough at this point to where like I think Robert Pattinson's a great actor, but I think he did have something to prove coming off like the Twilight series and like coming into movies like this. I mean, this is a very big departure from Twilight. But I remember really liking his performance, and then I watched it this time, and I was like, yeah, I mean, like he's good, but like I'm really feeling magnetized towards Willem Dafoe's acting here. But then by the end, I was like, because of the consistency with Willem, I was like, Robert Pattinson's like blown my mind. Like I feel like he truly has lost his mind.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like his facial expressions when he finally sees the light, I think are excellent. I love his screams. Like his madness screams are so good when he even early on when he like there's just this tension build up, and then he has to they wake up the one morning. I think it's the first night he agrees to. It might be after the Hark scene. It might be it's the night where he wakes up and their poop buckets are full.
Yeah.
And it's like after that he's got to get up and go back to work while Willem Dafoe gets to sleep it off.
Yeah.
And he's going out, it's windy, and like you already know it's gonna happen. It's such a cliche thing too, and he throws it and it just smacks him in the face. And yeah, that scream is just I think it's great. So yeah, I think I just was maybe it was because of expectations that I was more impressed with Robert Pattinson, but I still think they're both like 5 out of 5. I mean, these are two of the best performances that I think I've seen. And I think they'll continue to be. I don't think I'll ever like lower that.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's so hard to be a believable character in an unbelievable situation, right? Because like none of us have like any way really to relate to that. Most people won't have a way to relate to that truly, like to know what it's like to be under that experience. But yeah, here we watching these characters, and I felt it was believable the entire time.
Which
even
is
amidst
crazy.
me thinking about the psychosis and like the fact that some of this is probably not real.
And they're so colorful, right?
Yeah,
they're almost cartoonish in the way they like talk, and it's just like nobody talks like this. And like maybe they did back then, but like it feels like it's just so weird, yeah, because it almost feels like they're two people sitting on a set of a movie, but like I'm still fully convinced that they are these characters. They just sell it so well.
Yeah, my follow-up question was going to be, so the bodies that we find, do we think that they are like previous Lighthouse attendants? Do we think that they're people from like Pattinson's past who he's seen killed or let die? What do you guys think about that?
What are the multiple bodies?
There's the one in the beginning, and then there's
which one?
The one he finds in the water, based on the water. There's the head in the crab bucket, or if you want to call it that.
Yeah, the lobster basket.
Yeah, there's the siren, but I don't think we call that a body in the same context. I think it has a slightly different element to it.
The Mermusy?
Yeah, the Mermusy. Yeah, so what? Maybe there was another one, but there's at least those two, right?
I mean, there's the shot of like you see Thomas, like the blonde-haired guy, when he's going through his psychosis. You see Thomas that he took his the logger guy that died.
Ephraim. That's Ephraim. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Ephraim. So you see him. To me, it was him every single time, and I think it was just his guilty conscience showing him. I think the scene with the logs. I mean, that felt like either a dream or a fever. A lot of them felt like dreams or fever dreams. Like I don't think that those were really there, including the mermaid. Right. I think the mermaid you kind of get revealed that during his time at the logging camp, he had like problems with masturbating, essentially, like sexual and so I think that's kind of what the mermaid becomes. He finds this little figurine which is carved out of wood, and so it's like, did he bring it? If it's just him there, did he bring this? Did he carve this? And like he knows he's going to be alone. There's no like pornography back then, or maybe there was, but he doesn't have any. And he's a sexual creature that has, maybe an overly sexual creature based off of his past. And so, like, was that just his mind? He's a lonely man. And in my opinion, I think he is alone. Yeah. I don't think Willem Dafoe's character's there. I think all of it's just him. And so I think that's just his mind kind of trying to cope with that isolation. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, I think they're all the same person, but I don't think any of them were actually there.
Yeah, because the reason why I bring that up is because there is a moment where Pattinson accused Dafoe of killing the previous assistant, and so because he explicitly says, like, I found his body in the lobster cage.
Yep.
Which is really interesting, right? Because then when you play it all back, it's like, I mean, it doesn't really get addressed, which is a pretty serious accusation. It doesn't get addressed, and so it kind of brings up these questions of like, well, hold on a second. Do we really believe that Dafoe is a real character and actually did kill a previous assistant, which is why this person's here? Or is this part of the layers of accusations? Because that could have easily just, again, been like a figment of his guilty conscience in terms of letting the logger die. But then this accusation might have something more to do with, why Thomas is here, or like why Pattinson's character is here, or maybe why Pattinson was an assistant for the previous boss, right? That like, I think that there is an element to which like Pattinson is not, like, he's not fully guilty. Like, let me rephrase this. I don't think that the logger boss was a great guy. Let me put it that way.
Sure.
Yeah, I get the feeling that like Pattinson very much felt threatened and abused in his previous job. And so it's part of me is like, I'm wondering if like there's an accusation here, like this last attempt to draw innocence of like, well, but he was a terrible person, right? He probably killed the last guy who did this job, right?
Okay.
And
I mean,
so
they did make it pretty. I feel like he did touch that he was job to job to job to job. He was a jumper, but he was like, but not because of anything I did. But then it kind of reveals that like, so I do think he probably did have some discipline. I mean, the logbook he finds, it tells what his old boss essentially wrote down about him of what he did to, and the reason why. I don't know if he was fired from that job. I don't know if we ever find out if he was fired from that
he's
job.
recommended severance without pay. So,
was it okay?
That's what he said. Recommended severance without pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just thought that was an interesting element. Now, some of the things I really do enjoy, and I've kind of built up the streak, so I might as well continue with the streak. So the supposed story is Proteus and Prometheus. Proteus is a shapeshifter. He's also the son of Poseidon and the brother of Triton, which explains a lot of Defoe's dialogue. It's very Homer-esque. It fits in well. There's references to Poseidon, and which is not offbeat for sailors, of course, but especially not in the 1890s. But again, like this, the language that he refers to Poseidon as his father, so kind of makes sense for the archetype. But a shapeshifter is like a really important psychological trope because it can represent psychosis because it's sort of this ever changing, always whispery, right? Never always formless. So it's a great way of representing like the subconscious or unconscious. And then you've got Prometheus, which is one which uses for knowledge, or at least to give knowledge, but sort of steps outside of his boundaries, right? At least the boundaries set by the gods, and is cursed for that. And so like we see that in Pattinson's character. But some of the fun elements are like the other thing is that this could be the Lighthouse of Alexandria as like an archetype for the Lighthouse of Alexandria, which is like the Island of Pharaohs, which is featured in the Odyssey. And we very much do have sailors that are like stuck on the island amidst a storm, which is very much like Odysseus is like seeking home, but he constantly gets stuck. So like that's kind of a cool interplay. But the Lighthouse of Alexandria is well known for being the largest lighthouse, the tallest lighthouse, and so it's the lighthouse which like draws people from all over because it's obviously meant to be the one that's easiest to find. And of course, the height is always sort of symbolism for being closer to the gods, right? And so that's another important element. So then the knowledge from the knowledge of the gods, right, ascending to the highest point of the tallest lighthouse in order to claim the knowledge of the gods is very much like cool symbolism that we have there. And then the fall, right? Oh my gosh, he burns his eyes out and falls all the way down. Was so dramatic. But part of the fun element I found is also in the contrast, because there's this very significant contrast. And I've been thinking about this a lot. I still don't have a conclusion on it, but sirens and lighthouses don't mix. I don't know if you guys thought about that, or if you ever came to the forefront of your mind. Those are contradictory creatures, right? Because a lighthouse is meant to ward people away. There are rocks here. Don't come closer, right? You are going to smash your ship. A siren is meant to call people in, to lure them in. And a siren is also, I think, for many people, a very unsettling creature because it very much speaks to like how the two cases of violence that are shown in the show. Pattinson's character says his previous boss, he let him die. And then in this one with Defoe's character, we see him being buried, right, under dirt, rather than being, he was obviously physically attacked, but like rather than being like beaten to death, which are both like sort of forms of like the quiet murder. I'm not gonna physically drain the life of you, but I'm going to let the life be drained out of you. And that's very much the siren. The siren is the quiet murder, right? You pulled in and then you just drown, right? Mesmerized under spell. And so I thought that was really interesting. But the contrast of the siren and the lighthouse, I thought was really fascinating. Of like almost like the island draws him in, right, to the place that would be his like eventual tomb. even though a lighthouse is meant to ward away. And so, but that could also be. I mean, there's again, as Edgar says, open interpretation. That could be the obsession. Like that's in some sense like a, I don't know enough about Jung to say if this is like a Jung archetype, but like that could very much be an archetype for like obsession. Obsession is like the thing that you should stay away from, but draws you in, and taken too far leads to madness, right? And so there could be some like claim about that. But I just thought that was really fascinating in that part of the visual language of using these sort of contradictory creatures to help propel the story. And you mix it in the right degrees, and then you get Robert Pattinson beating a bird to death. So there you go.
Man, it looked real too. That
Yeah.
I mean, visual. Yeah, I never really thought. I know I had been saying siren, but I guess I just always interpreted it as just a mermaid, not necessarily.
Sirens
a
are
siren.
different. Yeah, sirens are different than
Yeah.
mermaids because sirens actually prey upon sailors.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's why maybe I lean towards it more just being a mermaid based off of like because it never really call. I mean, it certainly screeches.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's ever like luring him.
Yeah, but it appears predatory though. Like in this case, I think the lure is lust, right? But that is like the call of the siren is the lust. Like that's how they get men. The song is to lure men to their death, but ultimately it's a lust that draws them in, which is why people can avoid the siren, right? And obviously one of the ways people avoid sirens is like gouging their ears or muffling them or things like that. But like it is lust that pulls people under.
Yeah. But yeah, I think visually, any thoughts on any certain scenes? To me, like I think the lighting, the shadow, the use of shadow, I should say, was just I think you could probably freeze frame every single scene, and you can see the work they put into the shadows. And normally, I'm not a huge black and white guy. I'm not. I don't dislike it or anything. I'm just kind of indifferent. But to me, this movie, I don't think it would be the same without it. I think it lends itself really well to this movie, and additionally, the not full aspect ratio. And it's more and more than just like, oh yeah, it's an old timey movie. I think it does more than just set the setting.
Yeah,
I agree.
So I really enjoyed that. A lot of the shots I remember the most are like, how there's like they have their house where they stay, and then there's that like little like hallway almost to the lighthouse. Every shot of that hallway was like terrifying. I don't know why, but I just remember the way the shadows were in that were just terrifying.
There was a scene that stood out to me. I feel like it was probably right around the middle of the movie where we had been on the island for so long and just really only had shots of their living quarters, him walking around doing his chores or whatever, the lighthouse. And I forget what happened. I think it was at night. Then all of a sudden we had this like, we were off on the distance and we were looking at the island and the lighthouse from a distance again. And not that I have any specific point. I just remember that like really standing out to me and being really interesting timing. Thought it was really cool. And it just kind of reset for me something in me that was like, oh yeah, it's literally just this tiny little place out in the distance. It's just them. They're out there. I just thought it was a really cool shot.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of gives you a break and really drives home that isolation feeling. Which, it makes me wonder like how long was he there? How long was he there? Or was he, I know there's the argument of like, well, he was never there. Like it's just pure madness, right? But like to me, I think, or at least I want to believe for just the illusion of story that he did go there, lost his mind, and died there.
Yeah.
But like with the whole thing of like, oh, they can't come because they're supposed to pick us up tomorrow. They don't show up because of the storm, and then it's like, oh yeah, they haven't been here for 3 weeks. They're 3 weeks late, and they could be 9 months late. Last time the guy was 9 months late. Like, how long were they there? And I just found that interesting.
How did they have like enough food rations? That was also like going through my mind because like what were they actually eating and How are they sustaining themselves? Because it appeared at the end, all they were doing was drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
And
Well-
like not even pure. At some point, they're drinking like oil or
They're
gasoline.
Yeah.
or
drinking it. Yeah,
something,
so
right?
that is like I did have one point in the story where I was
Charlie
like, did they
Day.
really just drink this? And so I had to Google it. But yeah, no, it's turpentine. It's turpentine mixed with
Turpentine.
honey.
Okay.
I was like, are they really drinking that? But I also didn't know this. So it's kind of interesting. But like we often associate turpentine with paint thinner, and so turpentine like is an industrial product. However, there is a difference between turpentine and industrial turpentine. So like what you would probably buy at the store for paint thinner does have other things mixed in and is very dangerous if you drink it. Turpentine that's made from sap and gum is not as dangerous to drink. You drink enough of it, it will kill you. And that's not like if you drink enough alcohol, it will kill you. Like it doesn't take as much turpentine to kill you as it takes alcohol to kill you. But like if you drink industrial turpentine, like even just a glass, like that could kill you, right? They could drink a bottle of this turpentine and it probably would not kill them. It will make them drunk. It will give them like probably the worst possible hangover you could ever imagine.
Farts.
Like it is poison. Like it is effectively poison. I mean, I know people argue that alcohol is poison, but this is much worse. But it's not. Yeah, it's not like what you would use to strip the paint off of your car.
Okay.
But it's turpentine. So they have it to like, presumably they have it to wash things with.
Okay.
To to like get the rust off and stuff like that. And yeah, but that's what they're drinking. So, oof.
Yeah.
Essentially cleaning products.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think all those details of like, like, okay, well, they were, I mean, clearly, right. I think if it's happened before where they're 9 months late, I'm sure they do have extra food there just in case, like dry goods and stuff. And if it is just Robert Pattinson, then it's the thing that I feel like the argument for it not being just Robert Pattinson is like, isn't Lighthouse? Aren't they always manned by two people? One and like in the very beginning when
Or
they
more.
swap, yeah.
Don't
when
they swap with two
it's
people?
two people. Yeah, exactly. So
Also,
like,
how would he have dangled himself to paint the lighthouse if it was just him?
I think
the
he just
rope,
tied
but the rope did snap.
the rope snapped. Yeah,
Okay.
I think he could have just tied him. I mean, that's part of his duties. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think yeah. I think that could have just been him. I mean, it's so interesting, right? It's like every scene could be viewed as right. It's just him there, and every scene could be viewed as they're both there.
Mhm.
And it's just, I mean, the fact that it's intentional is, on one hand, really impressive, but on the other hand, it's infuriating because, like, I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know. Like, and then when directors do this, they're like, yeah, well, you're never gonna know. I'm like, but do you know? Do you know? Or sometimes there's like, I don't even know. I'm like, dang, I wish at least I feel like I'd have some comfort if he was like, I know the right answer. I'm just choosing to let people interpret it one way.
Mhm.
Versus like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't even
It-
know.
It feels like there's probably something with like answers, because another fact on IMDb here is there were versions of the script that were too clear. And so Robert Eggers' goal was to make the audience go mad and become confused with Winslow. So the final script turned out being more confusing for the audience.
Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
mission accomplished.
Yeah.
He definitely did it. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm so torn on it. It just, yeah, on one hand, I'm like, I have never felt this way watching a movie. I truly did feel like I was losing my mind trying to follow it. And that's really impressive because I've never experienced that before. But I also am like, I want to know a little bit more. Give me a little bit more. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But I do really like it.
Mhm.
I will say.
And then the last thing I wanted to add was I think it's hard to like go into this as a part of the spoiler free section, but I will say that the hardest part of the film for me, I think for other people probably too, is there is always going to be a hard element in watching someone have so expressive of a breakdown. Like we are watching the character like literally have a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And I mean, I assume it's Robert Pattinson, but in the scene where he's, you know, like jerking off to the siren and finally trying to be free of her curse, then like, I mean, that is the character is broken, like at the end of that scene, and like you just see that, and that can be a really hard watch. That definitely was like for me like one of the hardest scenes to watch of the entire film, was just seeing the character so broken. And then like it's sort of natural that this now devolves into like a lot of drinking and like then even drinking turpentine, right? Of just like the and then the spill your beans.
Oh man, how
Yeah.
are we not talking about spilling
Yeah.
your beans?
Because like
What?
this is like what's I think just so like again hard element, but like so important is like it's a fundamental part of getting closure is like breaking down. Like you have to let yourself be vulnerable and break down in order to have closure. But it's also like very I mean breaking down, but it's very destructive for like your psyche as well. And like the important part of like closure is like breaking into pieces with people that can help build you up, right? And I'm not a psychologist, not an expert on this, but like this is one of the reasons why I love like the movie Inside Out, because the idea of like sadness is meant to bring people together, right? But like imagine like having a breakdown where you have to like face your sins and the guilt of your sins, but doing it alone,
Yeah.
right? And it is like, I mean, that character effectively like by spilling their beans, they have accepted the guilt and are broken and have no one and no reason to put themselves back together. They are just a broken character.
Yeah.
And that's just like, and so then the alcohol and the turpentine and the violence and like it just makes sense for that character, but it also makes it a very hard watch. And it's so hard to like see that element of, well, you told the truth and it destroyed you.
Yeah.
Right. Oh,
It is tough, but also
Yeah.
like he's kind of like a piece of shit,
yeah. I mean,
you know? Like
Yeah.
he's not a good guy.
Mhm.
He's not a good guy. But and that's yeah, I mean that is a very like defining moment. That's when shit goes off the rails.
Yep.
Is when he finally admits to himself that he's not yeah, I think you nailed it. It's like not necessarily a murderer, but like uh
He didn't do the right thing
he didn't he's yeah, it's
when he
like
needed
a
to.
right
Yeah.
lying by omission. It's kind of the same thing,
Yeah.
but with murder.
Yeah.
And so I think the fact that he has probably been in denial about this for so long, and yeah, it's starting to haunt him so much, and then yeah, when he finally admits it to himself, then yeah, he just goes, he can't handle it. His brain just can't handle it. Which yeah, I can see how that's a tough watch. But I like that's why I'd rather see it in a movie than in, in real life.
Yeah.
So like, and I think that's why art is so cool, because it can in such a real way too, right? Like, I think it's so well executed that you really feel that to a point where you could be disturbed by it. Right. I don't think he's doing it in a way of like, isn't this cool? Like,
yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. Of course, you say that, and then you're gonna watch this video when you go to upload it. It'll just be you talking to yourself for
yeah,
whatever.
oh my gosh, yeah.
But no, I mean, I think that's a really important part, right? It's like it's not to say that the film is worse for it. I think the film is better for it. But I was the last thing I was gonna follow that up with, and I probably said the last thing the last time. I'm the man of many last things. But the most unsettling scene of that, because I do believe like the truth sets you free. I do believe in redemption of the soul, even for the worst of our kind. But there is no redemption for Pattison, and there's a scene that makes this for me evidently clear, which is at the end after Defoe is buried. You have the moment of shock, right? Which is a really important moment, because at that point it could have been like a drunken stupor, right? He's just not really sure of what he's doing. He's burying this guy, so very clear. Like he stopped after beating him, right? So there's some element of you're killing me that like caused pause, but then he's throwing the dirt on him, right? And then the shock factor when Defoe stops breathing, and he dives into the pit, and he's brushing the dirt off, right? Getting off his eyes, getting off his chest, pulling up his head. It's the classic, like, I'm going to mourn over you. And then what does he do? He just grabs the keys and drops the body and climbs out of the hole. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the moment where it's like, no. This character is not looking for redemption.
Yeah,
right?
Too far gone.
Yeah.
He can't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only one thing that matters, and that's the knowledge of
Yeah.
what is up there
Mhm.
that this man has kept from me.
Yeah.
All of the secrets.
It's my precious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Pretty much is, yeah. But-
So, but I think that it's you know, and again, those are like hard elements, but those are, I think, really mature elements and really important elements in like character stories. Like it's a tragedy. I mean, I think that's the right way to say this, is a tragedy. And so that's what we see, is we see a tragic character too far gone. And my wife and I, we went to a play a couple of years ago called The Last Nights of Judas, or The Trials of Judas Iscariot. And it was being conducted here in Tulsa, and it was such an awesome play to go see, because it's a tragedy, and the whole idea was that like Jesus forgives Judas, but Judas is too far gone. Like Judas can't forgive himself. He's too far gone. He doesn't want redemption. That the horror of like what he's done, right? Like it will stay like in his heart forever. He just can't let go of it. And like that's a very like real thing. And like I think it's a very real tragedy that like is true of people. At least we certainly feel it to be true. And I think we see that in Pattinson's character. And I think some of the best tragedies bring that to the forefront. And they help us to ponder like our choices and our actions, and understand the consequences are important. And like what we do is important, and we have responsibility and ownership for what we do. And as much as we might want to make excuses or try to claw our way out of things, right, the consequences are real, and that we have to
power going out, so you can't upload a video.
exactly. So sometimes dogs just eat your notes, and like that's just but like yeah. So I sometimes you gotta make a couple phone calls to the power company and just be like, I have to take my bill back. Can you please turn my power off for like a couple hours? Then I'll pay you again.
That's right.
No, but yeah, and I think that's kind of an important element. I think that's, for me, while there are pieces of it that I said, okay, this is probably a 3.25 for me because of these sort of pieces of visual language. I think that ultimately that's something that's very much like the staying power of the film for me, is like I think it is a very good tragedy. No, it's not one that's meant to make you super sad. It's not one that's meant to like shock you by the horrific events. It is one that is meant to tell a very powerful story about a character that essentially goes too far gone. I thought that was very cool.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I would love to hear if either of you ever do revisit it at some point, which I'm really glad I rewatched it. I think it did, especially like the first time I watched it. One, I just have a horrible memory, but I do remember the first time I watched it. It was when it came out. When did this come out?
2019.
2019, so 6 years ago. Yeah. So I remember when I watched it, I probably did the same thing I did this time, which was like, what? Let me just see what the internet thinks, because like, what the hell did I just watch?
Yeah.
For most of it. But then going back and revisiting those things, it was fun to kind of get to dissect it, not die. Interrupted myself at the wrong time. But yeah, I feel like this is a film that really lent itself positively to a rewatch. So yeah, if you do ever rewatch, I'd be curious just to see or hear how that goes. And so, last question. You've now both seen 2 Robert Eggers. Would you watch a third?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I will say that I would watch a third. I want to clarify one thing about this. Even after watching 2, I still do not feel like they are films in my comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like it doesn't.
Yeah. Same.
It still feels foreign. Like it still feels like I'm watching something in a language or of a type. Like I like sometimes we use the term like artsy, and I don't feel like that's quite right, but maybe it is. But like it's a way.
I think
it's the only way I know how to say of like
it is artsy.
There's something about this is still just very different to me.
Yeah, I was joking with Brooks before I jumped on. Shout out J-Puck. That
he is still alive. Like just to let everybody know.
Yeah, I don't mean this as a judgmental thing. I just feel like I feel like Robert Eggers' upbringing is so vastly different from mine. I was joking. I was like, he's got to be the kid that was sitting like in class, like doodling very concerning like images that like the stereotypical parent would be like, oh my God, like what's wrong with my child? And there's nothing. He's just incredibly like creative, artistic, and he just has an extremely unique artistic style to portray that is just very foreign to me as well, and makes me uncomfortable, which it feels from everything I'm reading that's like his point. He's putting you in these incredible worlds that he's spent a lot of time like researching. I think I read that he has a brother that he does a lot of this work on
I think he co-wrote this
as
with his
well.
brother.
Okay,
Specifically this
so
one. I don't know about all of
so
his films.
I agree with you, Ian. It doesn't make me not want to watch them, but I feel like, am I getting the whole point? Do I just not have that lens in my
Well, I think it's just like any art, right?
yeah.
I think, or right? People always say that wine is an acquired taste. I
Mhm.
think when you look at any art form, like we talk about books and we talk about board games as well.
Mhm.
When you, I think there's like a big line, right? There's the general board gamers who are like, what board games do you like? Monopoly. And that's normal, and that's what they know, right? Games, wits and wagers, like these big target name board games, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And then they don't even know that right. You got this whole shelf behind you. There are these people who consider themselves to enjoy board games that would never recognize a single game on your shelf.
Yeah.
And the same is true of books, right? There's this deeper literature, right? There's reading and there's literature. And same with movies. There's movies and there's film. So there's just like this defining line to where I think Robert Eggers makes films for film nerds, for film buffs, maybe not for the general audience. But the only way, I don't think there's a lot of people that drink wine the first time or read a really tough book that is meant to challenge you and be like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I love, and this is only what I love now. I think it's meant to challenge you as a viewer. And I do think as you watch more of them, at the very least, it will unlock, I think, a part of your mind to where you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm starting to recognize things I wouldn't normally recognize in movies and stuff. Like, I'm lucky because I wouldn't say lucky. I'm just saying the reason why I think I'm more into film is because my brother went to school for film, and we're like the same age. He's a year older than me, so like he kind of unlocked that part of my brain to where, I think that's why I enjoy them more now than I did, because I used to not. But hopefully, I think this kind of thing too, the discussion also kind of unlocks more parts of your brain, even for people that do enjoy film. Like the discussions that we get to have about it are discussions that it's not just things that I'm just like, yeah, I know that because I like film. No, it's like I want to hear the different perspectives and stuff because that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it a good discussion. So, you certainly could get through all four. I think he's only got 4 films. I want to say The Witch, Nosferatu, Northman, and The Lighthouse.
I thought there was 5. Maybe I'm misremembering.
There might be a 5th. I'm trying to think. Yeah, there might be a 5th. Maybe just not like a big release.
It's just the 4.
Just the 4.
Okay.
Him and Ari Aster again.
As director. Those 4 as director, it looks like. I think.
Okay.
Ari Aster's kind of got similar vibes with like Hereditary and Midsummer, and that kind of stuff. But I would love The Witch is my favorite.
Sorry, there's a few more from way back when. So the 4, The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Wood Northman, and Nosferatu is 4 recent ones, but he has 3 other ones. Hansel and Gretel might be the one. I've seen that one pop up several times.
I think that's I want to say it's a short.
Short.
Film,
it is a short. Yeah, the other 3 are shorts, and then The Telltale Heart and Brothers. He's got 3 shorts. But these are 4 full films that he's done. And they just the Lighthouse is actually rated his best on IMDb.
Yeah, I could see that. I think I like The Witch the best, just because it gives me the same not the same vibes. It's still different vibes, but the same. Like, I think it's a beautiful film, but it is a lot more grounded with a plot, a more linear plot, I would say. And but I mean they're very close. I think The Witch is like a 4.5 for me, maybe, and or just a higher 4. I don't think he's got a perfect movie for me yet. Nosferatu is my least, maybe my least favorite, or tied with The Northman for my least favorite. Northman was a bit of a disappointment for me. coming off the Lighthouse and the Witch, because those are both just so good. But yeah, I'd love to if they come up in the marble race at some point. I don't think I have the Northman in there. Actually, I don't think I have either in there, but maybe at some point we would. But yeah, I just appreciate you guys kind of jumping out of your wheelhouse a little bit, which can be fun. Even if you don't like
definitely
it,
been very enjoyable.
It's good discussion. So, speaking of marble races, shall we determine our next movie?
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I talked to Jonesy a little bit about this, and so I won't do it this time, but I'm thinking next time. Let me move over here. Oh, it closed. Sorry, I'm gonna have to reopen it. While I'm reopening it, so for what we're doing now is I basically have created a wish list of movies or a watch list, and then I check whichever ones are streaming, and then we marble race them. They all have their name, and whichever one wins, that's what we get. But I would love for you guys to have a say in what we watch as well, because these are really, it's just like the watch list that I've made. And so what I'm thinking for maybe next time is, come on, little guy, is that instead of doing a marble named after each movie, instead what we'll do is, did I take out the Lighthouse? Sorry, I'm trying to talk and do things in my brain. Can't. I think it did. And so what I'll do is, there's like 30 marbles, right? And so instead, I'm sorry, I can't do two things at once. My brain.
You're good. Take your time, brother.
All right, let's see. Is that and then I gotta stage it. Okay, so at least we're there for now.
Yep.
So instead of just doing individual marbles, what I'll do, especially if Brooks has joined us, we'll just do like 8, 8, and 8, and 8, 8, 8, 8, and 8 of color. So like 8 blue marbles, 8 red, 8 yellow, and 8 green. I'll be blue. Jonesy could be red. Whatever. We'll just be assigned a color.
Got it.
And before the marble race, we'll each bring one movie that we want to be our movie. So if any of our marbles, whoever crosses the finish line, their movie will be the movie that we watch.
Okay.
So I think that's what we'll do next time. This time, since it's just set up, if you guys are cool with it, we'll just
do it
like we did. All right. So I'm just gonna. Come on, little guy. Let me get a good camera angle.
Okay, while you're setting up, go ahead and start it. I'm gonna be right back.
All right. Racing. And we're gonna do you want to do 3 laps?
Sure.
Let's do 3 laps. That way Ian can see the end. So here we go. And you like having the numbers up. Can we see everything?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. The Lighthouse might be in there again. So obviously it will be disqualified.
We'll take
if it
second
wins.
place if he wins.
Yeah. We're gonna have to watch it again. I've not. Hopefully these are all still streaming. Obviously, if the first one that wins isn't streaming. Oh wait, some of these fell off the map. Look at American Fiction.
Oh, wow!
It's gone.
They actually fell off the course.
Yeah, this is weird. And what's Bottom's doing? It's just. Oh, I think it's off the course as well. It's underneath the course.
Disqualified. DNF did not finish.
Yeah. You guys, I think as we watch, the reason why I want to do that as well, I think I have a particular taste of movies like Titan. Looking at Titan and the Neon Demon, probably similar vibes of what we've gotten so far. And so, I think that could be
nice.
We'll
just keep shaking it up.
Yeah, because I think you guys would probably choose movies that I wouldn't normally watch, and that I would like to. Especially action movies, because I just don't love choosing action movies. But usually when I sit down to watch them, I enjoy them. I wonder if Titan's going to win. That'll be very interesting. Sound of Metal, I think, is a drama about a deaf drummer. Or I think it's a drummer who goes deaf from playing music. It's supposed to be pretty good. I think it won some awards the year it came out. But come on. I want the Labyrinth. This is a 3-lap race. So anything could happen. Labyrinth
is right behind.
Come on. Have either of you watched the old Sound of Metal? It's out. It got stuck.
Wow.
Have either of you watched The Fly with Jeff Goldblum?
I have not.
No. Okay. All right. I'm assuming that's probably the Cronenberg you would have seen if you've seen a David. I think his name is David Cronenberg. He's kind of like the OG for like crazy practical effects, like
Okay.
gory practical effects. And Crimes of the Future is one of his films with Aragorn, whatever his name is. Aragon.
Yep.
What's his name?
Same.
Wait, from Lord of the Rings, Aragorn.
Yeah, it's Gorn.
Yeah,
Gorn.
Aragorn.
Okay. Oh God, it's gonna be Titan.
There
All
it is.
right, Titan. This should be I've never seen this, so I'm excited to see it, but
Okay.
it might be another one of those an interesting one. So yeah. Okay.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I'm brave enough
Body
to watch this one.
horror, psychological drama.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it. Oh, whoops. I think nope. There we are. I think a car is involved in some way. I think it is, or I'm getting confused with a Neon Demon. I can't remember. But
So this is the 1996 or 2021.
I think
2021,
2021 Titan.
good.
Yeah.
It's
That
in the
makes more
same category as The Fly, right? Body horror.
I don't know. Yeah, it might be.
That's what it's showing, and it's got a
Yeah, it might be gory.
It's got a crazy movie poster here of
is there
something
a car
going
on
on with their skull next to their ear.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, I don't know much about it. I just know it's supposed to be another kind of artsy fartsy horror movie,
Yeah.
which I
Okay.
like. And we can kind of, if we do this one, we could make sure next time there is no artsy fartsy artsy
No, it's all
fartsy
good.
horror movie.
Mhm.
So
Let's
I'm not
do it.
subjecting you to too much because Jones, you're not a huge gore guy, right?
I'm not.
Yeah,
That's the only thing I'm nervous about here.
I'm nervous too. I might watch it. Do you want me to watch it and let you know? It might be really gory. Oh,
What was,
don't
our,
know.
what was our second marble? What's our backup marble?
Our backup marble is
Is it the Labyrinth?
it's not. It's Crimes of the Future, which will also be very gory and body horror. And then the Neon Demon, I think, is the same. So the fourth is Marriage Story with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. Have either of you seen that?
Mm-mm.
I think it's about a marriage that falls apart. I think it's like a
What's that?
heartbreaker. What'd you say, Ian?
I was like, if you say this one's also gory.
So it's a gory body horror about marriage. Yeah. So
I've seen snippets of this movie in the poster before. It looks very interesting.
Marriage Story
Mhm.
or Titan?
Marriage Story.
Yeah, I've heard it's very good. I feel like it's going to be extremely depressing,
Yeah.
which is why I've avoided it. But these are a lot of movies I've avoided because I'm like, I don't want to feel that right now. I'm like, but I want to watch it because it's supposed to be a good movie.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I'll watch Titan and
Just let me
kind
know.
of feel it out.
I'm okay skipping one. It's okay.
No, we'll never let any of four of us skip, right, Brooks? That's right.
Oh.
Oh, hopefully Brooks will be back for the next one. But yeah.
But the question, in the meantime, the question we'll leave the audience is Brooks even real?
Brooks spilled his beans.
Yeah.
Why'd he spill his beans? All right, everyone. I appreciate you watching, and we will catch you next time. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.